He was just a waiter, quiet, polite, invisible to the rich people he served every night. But one evening, a wealthy couple refused to let him take their order, just because of the color of his skin. They called him names. Laughed in front of everyone. And the manager? He looked away. What they didn't know, was that the man they were mocking didn't just work there. He owned the place. And before the night was over, their laughter would turn to silence, their arrogance to shame. This isn't just a story about revenge. It's a story about respect, about how quiet strength can shake an entire room. This is Raw Tales Stories, and tonight, you're about to witness the moment when dignity walked back into the room, and racism walked out. The evening lights of Atlanta shimmered like gold dust scattered across the skyline. Inside the Manor, one of the city's most luxurious restaurants, the air was thick with perfume, quiet jazz, and the clinking of silverware. Every table gleamed under the soft amber glow, crystal glasses lined perfectly, napkins folded like art. And in the middle of that polished perfection moved Ethan Cole, a tall, calm black man in his late 20s, sleeves rolled, posture straight, face focused. His smile wasn't forced, but practiced, the kind of smile that came from years of learning how to stay calm when the world gave you reasons not to be. He'd been working at the Manor for 5 years. To him, this wasn't just a job, it was a stage. Every plate served, every glass filled, was a performance of grace under pressure. But behind the smile, he was tired of the quiet racism that hid behind polite smiles and whispered tones. The guests who'd ignore him, the ones who'd hand the bill to his white coworker even when Ethan served the table. The manager, Mr. Dalton, always told him the same thing. Keep your head down, Ethan. Don't cause trouble. We just need good reviews. So Ethan did. Night after night. Smile, serve, step back. That evening, a new booking caught everyone's attention, table 7, near the panoramic window. A wealthy couple had reserved it, Mr. and Mrs. Whitmore, old Southern money. They were known in the business district, always dressed to impress, always looking down their nose at anyone who wasn't like them. When Ethan glanced at the reservation list, his coworker whispered. Good luck with that one, man. They're particular. Ethan just nodded. It's fine. I'll handle it. He straightened his tie, exhaled, and approached the table. The Whitmores had already been seated. Mrs. Whitmore's diamonds caught the light as she scrolled through her phone. Mr. Whitmore's silver watch flashed as he tapped the table impatiently. Ethan approached with his signature calm. Good evening. Welcome to the Manor. My name is Ethan, and I'll be taking care of you tonight. May I start you off with something to drink? Silence. Mr. Whitmore looked up slowly, eyes cold, expression unreadable. Then, with a slight sneer, he said. We asked for someone else. Ethan blinked, maintaining his composure. I'm sorry, sir, I didn't hear that request. But I'll be happy to. Mrs. Whitmore cut in, her voice sharp and dripping with arrogance. We prefer someone else. The table next to them went quiet. Even the soft piano music in the background seemed to fade. Ethan felt that familiar sting, the one that starts in your chest and burns behind your eyes. But his voice didn't tremble. Of course. I'll get the manager for you. When he turned, Mr. Whitmore muttered under his breath, just loud enough. These people will serve anyone nowadays. Ethan stopped for half a second. He could feel every eye in the room on him. But he didn't turn back. He walked straight to the kitchen, steady steps, jaw tight, heart heavy. Inside, Mr. Dalton was polishing wine glasses. He looked up, already reading Ethan's face. What happened? Ethan kept his tone professional. Table 7 requested another server. Dalton sighed, rubbing his temple. Ethan, just let Kyle take it. Please. We can't afford a bad review from them. There it was again, the quiet betrayal that wears a suit. Ethan nodded. Sure. I'll finish the other tables. He stepped out back for air, leaning against the cold brick wall. The night breeze hit his face. Atlanta's streetlights flickered like restless stars. He remembered his mother's voice, warm, firm, and tired from working double shifts. Son, the world won't always clap for you, but never let hate make you small. So he went back inside. Smiling again. Serving again. Because that's what strength looked like for now, swallowing pride to keep tomorrow alive. As the night rolled on, the Whitmores laughed, dined, and carried on, completely unaware that the man they humiliated would soon turn their perfect evening into the most unforgettable moment of their lives. Because the world has a strange way of flipping the script. And before the night ended, Ethan Cole's VIP card would shake the entire room. The restaurant clock ticked toward 8:30 p.m. The dinner rush had settled into its rhythm, the low hum of conversations, clinking glasses, and laughter that sounded like privilege echoing off marble walls. Ethan Cole moved through it all like water, silent, controlled, unbothered. Or at least, that's what he made everyone believe. Inside, he was replaying the Whitmores' words over and over. We prefer someone else. These people will serve anyone nowadays. It wasn't the first time. But it hit deeper this time, maybe because of how casual it was. The kind of racism that didn't shout, it whispered. And somehow, those whispers cut deeper than screams. At the bar, Ethan poured a drink for an older regular named Mr. Hawkins, a retired teacher who came every Friday. Rough night? Hawkins asked, watching Ethan's tight smile. Ethan chuckled softly. Same old story. Just with new faces. The man nodded knowingly. Keep your dignity, son. The world will try to take it, don't let M. Those words stuck in Ethan's mind like a seed, and that seed would bloom later that night in ways no one expected. Meanwhile, at table 7, laughter grew louder. The Whitmores were celebrating a business deal. Expensive wine flowed, their voices carrying across the room. Their new server, Kyle, was doing his best to stay polite, but even he looked uncomfortable. When he returned to the kitchen, he whispered to Ethan. Man, those people are something else. They just called me, boy. Twice. Ethan gave a small, weary smile. Yeah. That's them. Don't take it personal, ignorance has money too. Kyle sighed. Still doesn't make it right. Ethan nodded, glancing out through the glass doors that led to the main dining area. He could see the Whitmores, laughing, pointing, waving down staff as if they owned everyone in the room. His chest tightened. He didn't hate them. He pitied them. Because hate blinds you, and they were walking blind in a world that was changing faster than they realized. Later that night, while cleaning up a nearby table, Ethan accidentally crossed paths with Mrs. Whitmore. She stopped, her tone dripping with condescension. You again. I thought we made it clear we didn't need your service. Ethan froze. Her perfume filled the air, sweet and sharp. He met her gaze calmly. I was just clearing this table, ma'am. Her husband looked up from his wine glass. Just do it somewhere else. A hush spread over the nearby tables. Even the piano player hesitated mid-note. Mr. Dalton, the manager, rushed over, forcing a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Everything all right here? Mrs. Whitmore waved him off. It will be if your staff knows their place. Dalton looked at Ethan, silently pleading. Ethan took a slow breath, then turned away without a word. Every fiber in his body wanted to speak. To say something. To stand up for himself. But years of swallowing pain taught him restraint. Tonight, though, that restraint would become his weapon. Because sometimes the calmest man in the room is the one holding the power no one else can see. Back in the staff room, Ethan sat quietly, staring at his reflection in the small mirror above the sink. The fluorescent light flickered, buzzing faintly. He loosened his tie, rubbing the back of his neck. His phone buzzed, a notification from his investment partner, reminding him of his meeting next week about expanding their restaurant holdings. Yeah. Holdings. Plural. The world didn't know it yet, but Ethan Cole wasn't just a waiter. He was a silent investor in several luxury restaurants across the country, including the Manor. He'd started small, saving every tip, investing wisely, learning the business from the ground up. Every rude customer, every insult, he'd turned it into fuel. And tonight, fate was about to serve a full course of poetic justice. As Ethan put his phone away, the general manager, a higher-up named Mr. Reynolds, walked into the restaurant unexpectedly. He was there to ensure everything was ready for a very important VIP guest coming later that night. Reynolds smiled. "Dalton, make sure our best people are on standby for the E. Cole reservation." Ethan froze. Dalton nodded quickly. "Of course, sir. We'll treat them like royalty." Ethan's lips curved slightly. He adjusted his tie again, but this time, it wasn't to fit in. It was to get ready. Because the E. Cole on that reservation list wasn't some out-of-town executive. It was him. The same man the Whitmores just refused to be served by. And in less than an hour, the same man whose VIP card would make everyone in that restaurant realize just how wrong they had been. The night had grown calm outside. The soft hum of city lights shimmered through the restaurant windows like golden rain. Inside the Manor, the air was thick with quiet anticipation. Staff members whispered in corners, straightening napkins, polishing silverware twice. Because the manager had said it himself. A very important guest is coming. Big money. Big influence. Don't mess it up. Nobody knew exactly who the guest was. But the name E. Cole carried weight, enough to make even Mr. Reynolds stand straighter. In the back corridor, Ethan Cole stood before his locker, adjusting his cufflinks. No more waiter's vest. No apron. Just a crisp black suit, tailored perfectly, the kind that didn't need a brand label to speak power. He looked at himself in the mirror one last time, calm, confident, collected. He wasn't there to gloat. He was there to remind the world what grace looked like in the face of ignorance. He slipped his black VIP card into his inner jacket pocket. On it, engraved in gold, were the words. Founding member, the Manor Group. That alone could change the tone of an entire room. Meanwhile, the Whitmores were still at table 7, laughing louder than ever. The wine had loosened their tongues, and Mrs. Whitmore had already complained twice, once about the temperature, and once about the noise from the other tables. Mr. Whitmore swirled his drink. "You know, I keep telling these people, service these days is falling apart. Used to be standards meant something." His wife smirked. "Especially with the kind of people they're hiring now." Their laughter rippled through the air, drawing uncomfortable glances from nearby diners. Even the pianist hesitated again, his hands faltering for a moment before continuing. Then the doors opened. The maitre d' straightened. The staff froze. Mr. Reynolds stepped forward first, followed by Ethan, now dressed like a man stepping into his own kingdom. Reynolds smiled warmly. "Welcome, Mr. Cole. We're honored to have you this evening." Heads turned. Conversation stopped mid-sentence. Even the Whitmores looked up, curious. Ethan nodded, his voice low and calm. "Good evening, Mr. Reynolds. I appreciate the hospitality." Reynolds gestured toward the best table in the house, table 1, near the window. "Your usual spot is ready, sir. Would you like your regular wine?" "Yes, please," Ethan said. "Anne. I'd like to speak with Mr. Dalton and the staff briefly afterward." From table 7, Mrs. Whitmore whispered to her husband. "That's him. The waiter from earlier. What's he doing here?" Mr. Whitmore frowned, leaning forward. "Maybe he's here to pick something up. Probably got confused." But as Ethan sat, every waiter in the room moved with precision, serving him, pouring wine, standing attentively. The same people who had worked beside him hours ago now treated him like royalty. Confusion flickered in the Whitmore's eyes. And then it happened. Reynolds walked over with the black VIP card in his gloved hands. He placed it gently on the table. "Your membership card, sir. We've upgraded it to executive status." Gasps rippled through the room. Even some customers leaned forward. Mrs. Whitmore blinked, trying to process. "Did he just say, membership?" Mr. Whitmore's voice cracked slightly. Cole, wait. E for Ethan." The realization hit them like thunder. The man they had insulted, belittled, refused to be served by, was not only a member, but a founding investor of the very restaurant they were sitting in. Ethan looked up from his table and caught their eyes. He didn't smirk. He didn't gloat. He simply nodded, slow, dignified, the kind of acknowledgement that carried more weight than 1,000 words. Reynolds turned to the Whitmores, smiling with corporate precision. "Mr. and Mrs. Whitmore, I believe you were attended to by Mr. Cole earlier this evening?" They both froze. I wasn't aware he was," Mrs. Whitmore began. Reynolds cut her off gently. "Oh, no worries. It happens often. Mr. Cole prefers to stay close to his staff. It's part of why our service is world-class." Every word landed like a quiet lesson. Ethan leaned back in his chair, speaking finally, calm, controlled, his tone carrying through the entire dining hall. "Respect isn't about titles or money. It's about seeing people, not for their color, not for their job, but for their character. I've worked here from the ground up. Every waiter, every cook, every dishwasher, they're the reason this place stands. The least anyone can give them is respect." The room was silent. The pianist stopped completely this time, letting his words hang in the air. Mrs. Whitmore lowered her eyes, her cheeks flushed with shame. Her husband muttered softly, "We didn't mean any harm." Ethan gave a faint, almost forgiving smile. "You did. But now you know better." Moments later, the Whitmores quietly asked for their check, paid in full, and left the restaurant without another word. The staff, one by one, looked toward Ethan with admiration. Mr. Reynolds extended his hand. "You handled that with more grace than most men could." Ethan stood, shaking it firmly. "Grace isn't weakness. It's strength, just wearing a quieter suit." Later that night, after the restaurant emptied and lights dimmed, Ethan stood by the window, gazing at the city skyline. His reflection looked back, no longer just a waiter, no longer just a man holding back anger, but someone who had turned pain into purpose. He whispered to himself, "One day they'll learn. You can't look down on people who are already standing tall inside." The soft jazz played again in the background as he walked out, not into the shadows, but into his own light. The next morning, sunlight spilled through the tall windows of Ethan's penthouse office, sleek, modern, yet humble in its design. He sat quietly at his desk, a cup of black coffee steaming beside him, reading through the morning headlines. Across his tablet screen, one headline stood out. Newspaper, viral moment, restaurant waiter revealed as VIP owner after facing racist insults. The photo beneath it captured the very moment the Whitmores' faces fell, frozen mid-shock, the room around them silent. The caption read, "When respect meets revelation." Ethan sighed deeply. He hadn't wanted fame. He wanted change. But in the age of social media, stories like his traveled fast. Mr. Reynolds stood in the dining room, scrolling through the same story on his phone, half smiling. "Well," he said to the head chef, "looks like we're the most famous restaurant in the city today." The chef chuckled. "Never thought I'd see our waiter on CNN." Reynolds' expression softened. "He's more than that now. He's a statement." Meanwhile, the Whitmores weren't smiling. Inside their suburban mansion, Mrs. Whitmore sat on the edge of her couch, trembling slightly as she read through the comments online. Racists at the manor caught on camera. Entitled couple gets schooled by the man they mocked. Poetic justice served hot. Tears welled up in her eyes. George, what have we done? Mr. Whitmore rubbed his forehead, looking years older. We made fools of ourselves. And worse, we hurt someone who didn't deserve it. Silence lingered. Then she whispered. We have to apologize. His assistant buzzed in. Mr. Cole, there's a couple here asking to see you. They say their name is Whitmore. Ethan paused mid-signature. For a moment, old anger flickered behind his calm eyes. Send them in. The door opened slowly. The Whitmores stepped in, dressed simply this time, not like they owned the world, but like they were trying to be human again. Mrs. Whitmore held a small envelope. Mr. Whitmore spoke first, voice tight. Mr. Cole, we came to say, we're sorry. For the way we treated you. For what we said. Ethan didn't move. He let the silence stretch, long enough to make them feel the weight of it. Do you know why I didn't react that night? He asked finally. Mr. Whitmore shook his head. Because I've lived this story too many times. In boardrooms. At airports. At dinner tables. I learned that my silence hurts them more than my anger ever could. Mrs. Whitmore's voice cracked. You didn't deserve that, Ethan. Nobody does. Ethan looked at her, not with hate, but a quiet sorrow. You were never supposed to see me. That's the problem. People like you only look when it's too late. He stood, walking to the window, the skyline stretching out before him. But maybe, he said softly, this time, the world saw something worth changing. Mrs. Whitmore placed the envelope on his desk. We made a donation, in your name. To a foundation that supports hospitality training for underprivileged youth. Ethan turned. That's a good start. Mr. Whitmore swallowed hard. I also spoke to my company's board. We're reviewing our diversity policies. You made us realize, respect starts at the top. Ethan nodded slowly. It's not about me. It's about what you do when no one's watching. The couple stood to leave. Before they did, Mrs. Whitmore said quietly. You taught us something our money couldn't buy. Ethan gave a faint smile. Then the night wasn't wasted. Days turned into weeks. The video kept spreading. Ethan began receiving letters, from waiters, cashiers, even police officers, thanking him for standing tall with dignity. One message stood out. I was ready to quit my job after a customer called me names. Then I saw your story. You reminded me to walk tall. He printed that message and pinned it on his wall. Because to Ethan, that was the real victory. Microphone scene, TV interview. A journalist sat across from him, cameras rolling. Mr. Cole, people call you the man who turned humiliation into hope. What do you want America to take from your story? Ethan smiled slightly. That kindness isn't weakness. That you don't need to fight to win, sometimes, standing tall is enough. And that behind every apron, every uniform, every face you think you can talk down to, there's a story you don't know yet. The audience applauded softly. Some even stood. That evening, Ethan visited the manor one last time. Not as a VIP. Not as a symbol. Just as himself. He stood outside the restaurant, watching a new waiter, a young black man, smile as he welcomed guests with confidence. The kid noticed Ethan and waved. Mr. Cole. You coming in tonight? Ethan grinned. Not tonight, son. You've got this. He turned, walking into the city lights, calm, proud, and free. His voice echoed in narration as the screen faded to black. Respect isn't given. It's lived. Every day, in how we treat each other, and in how we rise, no matter how many times they try to put us down. Ethan stood with a group of teenagers, kids who reminded him of himself years ago. One boy, no older than 16, asked, "Sir, how did you do it? How'd you stay calm when they disrespected you?" Ethan smiled, looking down at the young man. "Because I wasn't fighting for their approval. I was fighting for my peace." The boy nodded slowly, letting the words sink in. "And peace," Ethan continued, "is the loudest power you'll ever hold." They cut the ribbon together as the crowd cheered. That night, Ethan returned home to find an envelope on his doorstep. It was handwritten. Inside, a note read, "Mr. Cole. You don't know me, but I watched your story online. I used to think people like me would never be respected in this country. Then I saw you, and something changed. I applied for my first job today. Thank you for showing us what strength really looks like. A kid from Detroit." Ethan sat quietly, the letter trembling in his hands. He exhaled slowly, eyes glistening. "That's why I do this," he whispered. Months later, Ethan visited the manor again. The restaurant had changed, more diverse staff, friendlier atmosphere, equal respect for everyone. The young waiter from before smiled brightly as Ethan walked in. "Mr. Cole. We saved your favorite table." Ethan chuckled. "You didn't have to do that. Your family here now," the waiter said. As he sat down, Mr. Dalton, the manager who once looked the other way, came over. "Ethan, I wanted to say, thank you. You made me a better man." Ethan nodded. "You made yourself one. I just gave you a mirror." Dalton smiled, shaking his hand firmly. Later that night, Ethan walked outside. The city buzzed with life, cars, laughter, streetlights reflecting off the pavement. He paused, looking up at the night sky. "People ask me if I ever think about that night, the insults, the shame," his voice echoed in narration. "And I tell them, yeah. I do. Because it reminds me how far we've come. How one act of dignity can echo louder than 1,000 angry words." He took a deep breath, smiling faintly. "You can't control how the world sees you. But you can control what you show the world. And sometimes, that's enough to change it." The screen faded to black.